Hey everybody, it's Thursday. Welcome to the Art Fight podcast. It looks like everybody's here. We just had like a little bit of a technical glitch, but
Come
we
on,
appear
man.
to be
Nobody would have known. Nobody would have
Wasn't
known.
it? Didn't anybody see that false start? Nobody saw that?
Well, if they got the notification that it came back up. So
Our listeners queued
anyways,
up, just like waiting with trembling hands on their keyboards, just waiting for the podcast to start.
give me some of that. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's good to be here, guys. If you heard the beginning of the last show, you heard me saying that it's an exciting time in the fight world. We're just about to have three big cards in the next 10 days. But instead of talking about the art in fighting, Brian, we're here to talk about the fight to make great art with our guest, Brianna Bass. How you doing, Brianna?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, we're doing great. Thank you so much for being with us. You were prompt. You're right here on time, like a real pro. And I've been trying to get ahead of myself in terms of scheduling guests and stuff. And I'm glad that we were able to get you on right away. I just saw on your Instagram you were sharing some posts of your dad came and visited you on the campus up at Yale, where you're at the School of Art getting your master's degree in fine art. Just a little bit of background, real quick. You were based in Knoxville, Tennessee, for a long time. You went to UT, is that right?
UT Chattanooga.
UT Chattanooga. Okay. But then you ended up living in Knoxville. Mm-hmm. And then while you were in Knoxville, you and your cohorts were constantly kind of running back and forth between Knoxville and Nashville. And I've, had the pleasure to meet all you guys and find out about all the stuff you're up to and doing. And I think the last time I saw you was probably like at Red Arrow Gallery or something. And shortly after that, I realized that you had applied to and been accepted at Yale School of Art. And I'm going to make you start off by just sort of bragging about yourself a little bit, just bragging about yourself, just to give everybody a really good first impression. But tell us a little bit about Yale School of Art. Is it or is it not like the premier MFA program you could possibly get into right
now? You guys are gone.
We're here.
We're here. We're just focusing on you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Trust the camera, Brianna. Let the camera tell you what to do.
Yeah. So it's ranked as the #1 painting program in the country. Mm-hmm. So I was very excited to be accepted. I had applied for 7 schools and got into 5 of them. And
good for you.
Thank you. So turned down several fully funded situations to kind of take a chance on this program. And it's been amazing so far. I think it deserves the attention that it gets. The professors are the best. My peers, I have a lot of painting peers, and they all make amazing work. And so it's an environment that's really, really saturated in the language of painting, and saturated with people who are 100% dedicated and driven. And so I don't think I could ask for a better environment to be in. I don't think that's bragging about myself.
You avoided the bragging very gracefully. Yeah. It's that's a bit of a fight move right there. I'm like coming out all aggressive, making you brag about yourself, and then you're just like, ooh, you just slipped it, and then you're like dancing around doing your own thing. So very well done, well done. 1 point Bass. I do think that one of the other things that makes your Instagram an interesting place to be is seeing all of your recent work, and the fact that you do. Is the exhibit still up right now, or did it already come down? You just had an exhibit there of your work, which is pretty impressive.
The show at Yale during the fall was actually a group show.
Okay. You had more than one piece there, though, right?
Do what?
Did you have more than one piece in it?
I had 2 pieces in it.
Okay.
I didn't have like a focal part in the show, but it's down now. Mm-hmm. I did have a show at the very beginning of the semester at Missouri State University, and that was a solo show. The one that for that show I was focusing on paintings about music, and so that may be what is that may be what you're thinking of as.
I think I mixed those two up in my brain as I was just like scrolling through all the posts. What
I also set my studio up to look like a show. I totally cleared it out.
You might have completely fooled me with that one. I would have been like, this is really impressive.
Online, it is what you make it.
You just like move everything behind the camera, take a shot, move everything behind the camera, take another shot.
I didn't not do that.
What about you know, it's you mentioned the fact that you're making these paintings about music, and I know that it gets kind of complicated, but can you do your best to sort of describe to people what your work looks like right now?
Yeah. So I think the way that I have been kind of working is like through sort of mini theses seasonally in a way. So over the summer was when I was focusing more intently on the music transcription. So that was kind of like a particular rabbit hole that I went down. That the goal of that was to try and visualize how music behaves in terms of how color and color harmony behaves, by taking the musical scale, like the 12 kind of half notes that make an I don't have
an octave. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But and then applying that to 12 increments along the chromatic scale, and so translating sheet music through that system into like a visual field of color, so I could see the sort of how music ascends and descends in terms of how the color goes up and down a rainbow, and how things shift and relate to one another in that way. So
are you a synesthete perchance?
No. But I think that's a really interesting concept to use as a tool. So I have I'm hard of hearing, and so the way that I was trying to use color to kind of explain music was a way for me to have better access to music. So it's not like a pre-existing synesthetic condition, but it's the implementation, repetitive implementation of this system to try and train myself in a synesthetic way, and to open up my mind to a synesthetic experience. So I think of it as like a prosthetic synesthesia.
Yeah,
nice.
So
nice.
That's
Put that in vinyl on the wall next time.
Yeah. Band name
synesthesia.
Band name right there. Band's name right there. No, but
it's a double album, Brian.
But I do want to say real quick though that when you were explaining that, I was thinking it's sort of disassociative in some way, not in like the strangely negative psychological way or whatever, but in the way of because you are hard of hearing, you are already positionally in a slightly more abstracted perception of sound. And so I'm not saying that it's not a direct plug into synesthesia per se, but it is this common, similar predicated concept of I'm already outside of what is normative perception.
Right. And I think that is what has kind of enabled the transition into the work that I was doing over the fall, which wasn't as directly working on translating and exploring music and sound, but thinking about this experience of sound through the lens of hearing loss, and through having sort of issues with conversation, and so analogizing colors with words. It's hard to explain what my paintings look like, but like having when you say a sentence to someone, it takes like every bit of the sentence to define the rest of what you're hearing. Otherwise, you're just getting these little phonetic bits.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of thinking about color as like, is a particular color a word, or is it a phonetic bit? And
it's
so
really interesting, and because that's almost like the stuff of learning language.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
So like the last semester, I've been kind of trying to use these frameworks that, like the spectrum or red, green, red, green, red, green, that by their nature kind of define the colors, so that you understand the color like as this solid, identifiable, sort of unchangeable thing, which is antithetical to what color actually is, which is shifting and always contingent upon what's around it. So running these systems through processes of change to kind of produce these shadows, which I'm trying to think about what those mean in terms of the identity of a color and language and things not heard. And then also, they end up relating back to that like sort of visceral experience of sound and noise and silence, and sort of what the process is when you read a painting from top to bottom, and and you stop being able to name the colors that you see, and how that relates to the experience of interrupted communication.
So what you're saying is you're kind of just hacking around and having fun with it. And sometimes you guys get super baked. Sometimes you're just hanging out. Sometimes you look at what you did the next morning when you're all hungover and you're like, man, that's brilliant. And other times you're like, this is terrible. What was I thinking?
Yeah,
I can't turn this in
at all.
It's basically like that is kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. You remind me a lot of, I mean, in a way, because you're sort of doing a different take on it. And certainly like your use of color is different, but we had, Lindsay Davis came on our show, last year sometime, I guess, or maybe it was even longer than that. And she was doing lots of work at the time that was black and white, but doing similar things where she's like putting blacks against whites and then putting this gray in there, and in your mind's eye these whites are different colors, but in actuality they're the exact same color, but they read differently because of the colors around them. And yours is similar, but yours is different to me because of the fact that you're actually dealing with like full-blown the whole spectrum of color, just like you're trying to look at the whole spectrum of a musical scale. And I think it's pretty rad. Another thing I like about these is that I dig the way, like, to me, it's like the sort of need for variety that I have means like, I just want to I want to do something creative in a completely different medium. If I already did something in this medium, then now I want to do it in a totally different way. And I really admire it when I see people who are able to find like a thing and then just like mine it, like just mine the hell out of it. And I feel like when I see all these works together, they look similar. They all look like yours, but there are actually lots of differences between them, even though we're essentially dealing with, stripes and blocks of color. You know what I mean? And I would be like, okay, I did like 3 of those. That's it. I'm over it. You know what I mean? But you're just like, no, there's this whole other subtle way I could do 12 more paintings.
Wanting to, that's something I'm thinking about a lot this coming spring. Sort of something that came up in my final reviews. Like on one hand, I had some professors saying that they could see like the variety through the depth, and then some other professors saying, pointing out that when you're at graduate school, you can kind of like, you don't have to like corporealize a complete idea. Yeah. So this semester I'm thinking like, what does it look like if I spread out and just ask like as many questions as I can about the experience of color and like about media, and to just ask myself a question for like 2 seconds and then do it and then reflect on it later and see what I learned from asking that question. And doesn't have to be that I made a good piece, but it's that I learned like another piece of aesthetic language from doing this action. But yeah, I do. But then on the other hand, I'm like, I know I'm going to keep making these paintings because I make one and I'm done. And then I'm like, but what would happen if I do it with like 3 colors on the bottom instead of 2 colors on the bottom? And and then the process of making these like minute variations does teach me a lot about the way that color behaves. And it's kind of one of those things that I can't visualize it until it gets out in front of me. And then and then it's like, where do I go from here? And I don't know, I'm obsessed with the process too, because it has this, it's like a very meditative process, and it has like helped me so much being so structural and organized. And that has not been my brain in the past. And so through making these paintings, I feel like I've trained myself towards this like
interesting
peace in organization. And
I was going to ask you about that because
how much of a control freak are you, Brianna?
I'm not I don't know. Which of these actually are kind of a control freak, but like, no, I think I feel more like I'm on the edge of like everything slipping through my fingers all the time. So
perfect.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Brian. What were you trying to say?
Oh no, I was just gonna ask. You know, I couldn't help but even at first glance be like, okay, there's got to be some sort of a zen in this, or there's got to be, because you know, on the front there's a lot of sort of scientific things going on, or clinical approach, you know, or very clean in its in the sort of the entree. And then once I would imagine the act of perceiving in person, probably more likely, but right, still even with the images, but just it feels like that there's some something, not to say that the front end of the process is cold, but it's really just, you're just setting, what I hear you saying is you're sort of setting up a baseline of some sort of order to then reflect things against. And that's sort of the same as the way that you talk about the essence of sort of like a color is got to be, it's contingent upon its, you know, its context, as you said, or whatever. So anyway, I guess I was very curious about sort of, the zen of it in terms of perception, creation, and it seems like it's got something a little deeper than that. And by the way, one of the first thoughts I had that's not really sort of relevant to in an equivalence kind of sense, but in terms of just one of the first things I thought was, you're always comparative when you see something you haven't seen before. And one of the first things I thought of was Barnett Newman sort of zipper, that era style abstract expressionist type of thing. And it was very, that time and that era has like it's you're drinking from a fire hose of zen, right? This is a little bit more like, this could be a desired outcome, or this could be part of the experience, or it could be something where it's like, no, I just kind of think about it as this kind of, these are just iterations being put forth in a formulaic way, which is, there's nothing wrong with that either. But I'm glad to hear that there's a sort of a human feeling sort of piece of it to you that seems pretty personal.
Yeah, there's something I probably want to get past at some point in the future, is I do feel like I try to kind of withhold a degree of like emotion and sort of like expressive.
Now we're getting to it. Joe. This is why we make the big bucks.
Feelings.
This is why we make the big bucks.
Yeah, but I think that is something that, I don't know, maybe in my paintings is not where I want to deal with my feelings exactly. It's like where I want to
thank God.
but at the same time I am dealing with my feelings. So, but I want to have that moment where like I have my ruler on the canvas and I get this close to it and I make like 100 like tiny tick marks, and you know, where you watch the pencil like go up and down the canvas, like Agnes Martin kind of, there's always that phase to the paintings. And then, and then painting it, it's not like there's no, the only stress is like, is this color like jumping too far or not far enough? Is it going to make it to blue by the end of the frame? I don't know. But yeah, the decisions are smaller. Yeah, like, so for this one that you have pulled up there, it would be like, is it going to get light enough? Is it going to get light enough at the same pace as the other? But there's also not that much stress either, because the contextualization of like what the painting is telling you that you're seeing, it's telling you that you're seeing a rainbow. It's telling you that all the colors are getting lighter. So to a degree, I think your mind kind of fills in the blanks when it's not perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's about like that. It's just about like watching that brush stroke run out of paint and then getting another scoop and like watching that run out of paint. So I think like, while I say I'm not like dealing with emotions in the paintings, I'm also dealing with, I think a lot of anxiety within the paintings. And like I was talking about before with my issues with hearing, I was kind of compulsively making these rainbow paintings, and I realized that it was because I wanted to have the opportunity to visualize like all of the data like enumerated in one place, and to have access to something completely when I was feeling like in my everyday life, I just every day I was like, I can't hear what people are saying, and it's just like, you know, stressful and difficult to try and piece things together that are out of order just so that you can have a regular everyday conversation with people. And so that's the kind of like emotion that I feel like I'm dealing with through the paintings, which is like actually a really deep sense of loss and anxiety and all of that. But I think through making the paintings in this way, it's been really, really healing for me. So,
well, it's probably interesting too to have each one is essentially, whether you like it or not, a portrait or a memoir or a capture of a time and a place. And so even if no one else understands it, that personally you are, you know, I mean, I with music that I make or whatever, I listen to something that I made, you know, whatever, 20 years ago, and I get taken right back to that place. And I don't think that people talk enough about how it's almost important to make or create just even for that purpose alone, because you're just going to have these manifestations and projections and mirrors of times that, you know, you don't have to bury yourself in nostalgia per se, but you do need to sort of remind yourself about like sort of where you came from. And also it's maybe a mechanism sometimes to pat yourself on the back. As much as it's awful sometimes to look back on past work, you can, but, you know, give yourself a pass and be like, okay, that was a long time ago. I was learning. I'm a human being. But at the same time, there's some essence there, you know. Joe, I know we've talked about this with music a lot, you know, where it's when you go back through, especially now during the pandemic, everybody's been kind of going back through their archives. You know, I can't tell you how many friends of mine have said like, you know, check this old archival tape of our band, or, you know, like everybody's been sort of pulling it all back out, and nobody cares about how shitty it sounds. Nobody cares about even a lot of the technique or the playing. All that is people are really caring about and sharing this stuff is it's all about just this kind of this spirit and this energy, you know, of the time, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of like, as you're talking, Brianna, about sort of this notion of your sort of, whether you're sort of wearing emotion like a backpack through this or not, or whatever. It's like the whole time I'm thinking, I don't know how you can't escape it. Everything you are is, I don't know. Is that a sentence, Joe?
Yeah. I love that you bring that up, because that's something that I talk about a lot, but I don't feel like I ever hear people really bring it up the way that making something like making a piece of art or making music, which is not really something that I do, but the way that it does act like it just sticks everything in, like stuff that's not even important. It's just like a big like ball of glue, and then you can you can go back to it forever apart, and you're like, I remember the smell of like where I was, or I don't know why it works like that, but it's almost like worth the process of making something wherever you are, just for the sake of you doodle in class is basically what I'm saying. But I don't know why it works like that, but I think that is like a real treasure of making things.
Yeah, for sure. I was just listening to what's his name? Who's the guy who recorded the Beastie Boys and Johnny Cash? Rick Rubin.
Yeah, Rick Rubin.
He's got a podcast called
I'm Rich.
No, it's not called. It's not called I'm Rich. He's like a Zen rich guy. But his podcast the other day, I can't think of the top of my head, but they had Jim James from My Morning Jacket on there, and he was talking about how he's one of the, some people get like very conceptual or whatever, or like if you're like a big pop star, then you got like 20 people telling you which songs need to be on the album and whatnot. But he's like, the songs just sort of hang together because they were the songs we wrote like when we left the tour and my guitarist had the baby and then the pandemic hit and then we were able to do that concert together and then we went back on tour and like all of a sudden it's like, okay, we need a new album now, and it's like, well, this is the new stuff, you know what I mean? But the new stuff just happens to be the stuff we did during this period or whatever. And so it's not strictly diaristic necessarily, but it ends up being that anyway because it's representative of the production of a certain time period.
Yeah, and you can't always see that when you're in it, but then looking back.
Yeah, I've given myself permission to take all this music stuff that I've made over the last few months and create volumes and just release them as they are, because I think that's if there's anything that should be the takeaway or whatever from this time is when you talk about anxiety or all these other things, I mean, and you see a lot of sort of fodder about this in sort of social media, but it's really true. I mean, you got to give yourself permission to just chill the fuck out and just, this is not, yes, here's my half-assed work. Thank you. Like I was able to come up with that or whatever, and not have this burden of perfectionism or, anything like that. And really the perfectionist approach to me became, how do I most accurately just in an unfiltered way make what is for me right now without any pretense, without any shine, without any direction, or without thinking about where it might go or what might happen with it. It's all happened faster, and it all came from, you have to learn something new, create something new, and then get it out. And man, I'm real sensitive to having stuff laying around. So I'm just getting this stuff out. Joe's been doing the same. Everybody's, a lot of people been doing the same. Everybody's got a new business. Everybody's got a new idea. Everybody's got a new thing. I just made up, about 20 or so pieces of music that no one will care about at all with any sincerity. It's not going to change any lives, but I'm so glad that I did it. You know what I mean? And it's necessary right now to like, just let it go, man. Just like, don't, now's not the time to be like super critical. Granted, you're in a MFA program, so that's kind of also you do have your peers and a mutual responsibility. For me, it's just about like, what can I do to make Joe Nolan happy?
Right.
I
want Joe to give me a thumbs up.
Yeah. but for you, Brianna, you actually have a cohort. Yeah.
Yeah, but that level of perfectionism doesn't necessarily have anything to do with your work ethic, I think. So I am totally trying to be where I think what you're kind of talking about is like being mindful and like making these small decisions and just like making things and getting them out and like asking these questions that feel relevant like that day. And I feel like being at Yale, there was a different kind of perfectionism in the beginning that I probably put on myself. And I'm like, I'm at this major Ivy League institution that's like, right. I have to make like every piece I make has to land like with a resounding like boom. But yeah, but that there's a degree of like sincerity that can come with like what happens if I don't make a single piece that works this coming semester. Then that may not be doing any disservice to my cohort as long as I'm putting, the time in the studio and the sincerity into the questions that I'm asking and like the honesty with myself and just be like, I brought you 100 pieces of something. Critique nicely. So yeah, I'm trying to get to like reorient my perfectionism into being like, I really, really want more for myself in terms of like the peace and openness and like and honesty within the studio, because like ultimately I'm looking for like a sustainable studio practice that can last me forever. And kind of think some of the things, sometimes if you do weird stuff in graduate school, it like validates it forever. You can be like, I used to put pennies through a grinder, coffee grinder in grad school, so that's what I do now.
Yeah.
So I need to like
That's the penny girl.
Yeah.
So yeah, like branching out and just not being afraid to like ask questions and let things go that aren't going to change people's lives, and just put things out.
Yeah.
Into the world.
I appreciate, like we said a minute ago about how, you've gotten this positive feedback from a lot of your professors, but then you also had professors say, you don't have to create a cohesive body of work. You don't have to come up with like the quintessential Brianna Bass painting while you're at grad school, but I also appreciate the fact that you're saying, hey, maybe there's some logic to that. And I want to maybe give myself some space to sort of ask off kilter questions that have nothing to do with what I'm doing, and have a bit of a process going on there and find out some things, and who knows what I might discover. And then you said, but I already know that there's all these other paintings I want to make. And I think that's a really important thing for people to hear, because there's two reasons why. Specifically for an Art Fight podcast, you're really explaining something that Bruce Lee explained when he was formulating his philosophy of the martial arts. And he basically was like, don't believe people who tell you like there's only one way to do something. There's any number of ways to do something. Any number of them could be valid for you. And, basically you should take what works and leave what doesn't, essentially. I'm not saying it anywhere near as eloquently as Mr. Bruce Lee said it, but essentially he said the same thing you're saying, which is that, I'm glad you like my paintings. And I'm glad you think I should try other things. And I can see how both these things are good for me in the way that I know they are. And that's the decision I'll make about my work. And I think that's important. And I think especially when artists are younger, it's really, really easy to sort of just take advice is important, and having mentors is important, and having peers is important. And also doing your best at that time to keep your eye on who you are. You're somebody, you're the one doing this work. You have an inside knowledge that no one else can have but you, and it's important to honor the fact that, if this person says something and you think it's like half right, it's only half right. You know what I mean? And let it just be half right. And you might discover that, oh, it's actually all right, but I was too dumb to know that until I tried it. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's how you'll learn, but I think it's really important to like, even when, artists are younger or, just emerging or whatever, it's just, or later on. I mean, it's like you at the end of the day, man, you got to keep your hand on that rudder and make the choices that are the best for you. So I really appreciate what you're saying about that. And the other thing I wanted to say beyond the Bruce Lee thing was, I think that you're finding this sort of vocabulary for yourself, and finding something that has you this passionate and this just excited to the point where you're just like, by the time you're done, you're like already thinking of the different other combinations that you now want to do. That's really great, because I think there's probably people who are your peers and beyond that who they can't find the thing that actually is fascinating. You know what I mean? They don't know what their vocabulary is. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So to actually have, not to say that you'll continue to make these paintings for the rest of your illustrious career, but you will be, but you're somebody who you already know how it feels to come upon an idea that is a space that you can explore and find, and it'll be easier for you to find more of those things in the future. I think having already recognized a territory and said, oh, here, I can hang out here for a little while.
Yes. Like, this is what it feels like when something clicks and something's right. I've definitely been through those times when, I think maybe like 2 years after I graduated from undergraduate school, I just kept starting all these different paintings and couldn't finish anything just because nothing was right.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what it was. But yeah, I think around like 2016, I started like working with this process of gradations and like gradual change and shifting fields and stuff. And that just like, so I just haven't been able to.
What it reminds me of is how so most of my youth was wasted on a lot of things. But one of the biggest things I wasted time on was really experimental music. And no, I'm joking. I played a lot of experimental music, but it wasn't a waste of time. But it was a little bit of a waste of time. But the idea is just that the way I relate to that when I hear what you're saying is it's kind of like, I gave myself free space to play and develop, and I came up with a lot of things and went real hard for a long time and said a lot of things, played a lot of notes, did a lot of situations, whatever, all this stuff. And then at the time, I was with a songwriter, and she played what you call music. And it had structure and intention and architecture and craft. Not to say that experimental music doesn't, but all of a sudden, my playing music with her and other people in that way, when I got to Nashville, by the time I got to Nashville in 98, I started making music with people that were just incredible writers. Everything about what I did on every aspect of my playing, it didn't matter what instrument or producing or mixing, everything got so much better because now I had these ready. I didn't realize how much heavy lifting I was doing to try to like sort of pollock my way through life. You know what I mean? Like,
you really cracked the ice this time, Jackson.
So like to have just a recipe or a framework or constraints or whatever, ultimately it's always going to be, usually going to be a good thing. And, Joe is, Joe's experimental. Have you heard Joe's music, by the way?
I haven't.
Okay. So Joe is a sort of, he's straddling time. He's sort of like, he's like a character in a film from 1964 kind of thing. And it's really beautiful and of another time, songwriting, pure. And then he's also very strange. Wow. So it works out really well, but it's Joe for you as having as much like a wide range of tastes and influences and all these things. I've always thought it's great that like you have the anchor of traditional songwriting and like you don't have to wonder what the hell I'm doing. I'm standing here, I'm playing a guitar. This is a harmonica. You're not scared of anything. Like, the worst thing that'll happen is like a protest song and you can just turn it off or whatever. You know what I mean? Like if you don't like it. So I just always have a deep appreciation for that. And I think everybody has some period of time, whether it's in their beginning or in the middle of their sort of journey of whatever it is they're trying to figure out what they want to do. There's always a period of free play that, you've got to put some rails around at some point. And I think that what you're saying, Brianna, is like, once you sort of came up with some kind of targets of like, I don't know, I'm just going to go here and then accept the output as being the output of this experiment. And I can revere it for that, as opposed to it being everything has to be my soul hanging on the wall for others to critique on Thursday at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
Don't be late.
Hey, by the way, like what's the dirt, right? Like can we get to the gossip? So tell me about your cohort. Who's the one that's like super competitive, but tries to play off like they're not competitive, but you could see the competitive wheels turning.
Let's do the Art School Confidential overlay.
These people are on the internet. These viewers up here in the corner are.
Wow, that's
So, I mean, I had heard coming in, like when I visited for my interview, I had spoken to someone who was in the program who was about to graduate, and I was like, "Are people nice here?" And they were like, "You'll make friends.
Are
You'll
people
find
nice?
people who are nice." And I was like, and they're like, "Yeah, no, it's cutthroat. Yeah, it's pretty. It's like it's scary."
Hmm.
And I was scared about that, but I don't know if it's just that the world is falling apart, that people are like, maybe I don't know. Everyone is so nice in my program, and I don't know, maybe I'm naive and I don't know like what the drama is, but everyone seems really supportive, and there are a lot of people. So it's hard to kind of get close to people. Plus, I didn't get hearing aids till like halfway through the semester, so I was kind of people are scary. What if they do to me?
So is this I mean, I'm going to get too personal. You don't have to talk about it necessarily, but is this it's a newer thing for you? A developing thing that just finally required something, or tell me about that.
I don't actually know for sure. I noticed it about 5 years ago, but it was probably going on for a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a very mean boss who was like, "Are you stupid? Because you can't hear me when I'm whispering behind your back." And then I got hearing tests, and indeed there was a problem. And yeah, I guess it has been I guess it's been getting worse. And I just didn't have health insurance for a long time. So
you've been coping anyway. So it's sort of like, I would imagine for you also, anybody that's, you're not a child anymore, right? So to take on something like that feels like such a cataclysmic acceptance of some dose of mortality or fragility in some way, where it's like, I'm going to put that off until I make that formal declaration. It's not something you just take a pill for and it's kind of a quiet, managed health issue or something. It's something where it's like, this affects how I relate to space and time and people and everything.
Yeah. There's been I probably should get therapy, but
that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing here.
But yeah, it is like a big change accepting like this device that I wear in my ears now and stuff. But like thinking back on before, I was just like in the first part of the semester, into the podcast dirt, but like my first critique, I was like, I never cry in critiques. I have a great attitude and stuff. But like, my first critique, we're all in this huge room together. There's like, I don't know, a number of people in person with their masks on, and I couldn't hear a single word for like 3 hours. And
I can imagine.
Like 20 minutes in, I was like, I'm gonna cry. I'm just gonna like walk out of critique right now because I can't deal with this. And I probably cried for like 2 straight days after that, just because I was like, I'm not gonna succeed here. And then I got the hearing aids, and like I'm just like, I'm gonna be fine.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, it gets tied with a lot of other. It's probably hard to separate the impact of the sort of medical or health issue versus. You have a choice of maybe how much other things you kind of put on top of that, and it's probably hard to resist making it a full bore source of a meltdown in a situation like that. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of things. I don't know. I commend you for that. That's a lot, man. But it's cool. You figured it out. You're getting sorted out.
It's another reminder to go easy on myself too. Like when I look back and I'm just like, I didn't do this semester as well as like I think I can do it this coming semester, but I'm like, I was dealing with a lot. So, giving myself a break a little bit in that regard is like a kind way to be.
I think, I mean, just, getting into the best program in the country and then leaving home in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, it's okay. You didn't get sick. Great success. You know what I mean? Everything else is just frosting, really. I think, I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. And, from what I've seen, yeah, you're making a very good showing of yourself there. And I think it's it's a crazy time. And like you say, I mean, I was going to ask you about this, but I think you've already kind of summed it up that, this is your only experience of being at Yale, for your first year, which will end. It'll end when you'll be a year. When will it be? The mark in August?
Yeah, I guess it'll be a full year when the August semester starts, but my academic year ends in like May or something.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. Hopefully, man. I'm just hoping by then, like we're at a point where it's looking like, we're all getting ready to hang out again. I've got my birthday is in June, and my goal is to be able to actually see people on my birthday, which would be so great. Because I didn't get to see anybody this last time. It was so sad. I know. I mean, like nobody did.
Birthday alone.
What'd you say?
Joe, when's your birthday again?
June 13th.
Right.
When are you? 28th?
No, mine's June 30th. So this is perfect. So like you can be like the experiment birthday.
When's your birthday, Brianna?
Do what?
When's your birthday?
My birthday was November 18th. So
okay. Happy birthday. That's still soon enough. We were gonna we didn't podcast on the 18th because it was Brianna's birthday. We took off Brianna's birthday and also Thanksgiving.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. But yeah, being at Yale, like I'm passing the School of Drama every day on my way to school, and like the music performance halls and stuff. And I'm like, man, if this was regular times, like I'd be going to performances and like sitting in these. I don't know if you've seen pictures of the campus, but it's like Hogwarts. It's so it's old and pretty, and I was just like, I'd be like going through these drafty stone halls to sit in my like architecture lecture where there's
every now and then Harry Potter comes up on the podcast. What house do you belong to?
I have tested into Gryffindor, but
okay.
I've tried to get into Slytherin before. I'm like a part Ravenclaw.
We had a friend of ours that was on here who does an MMA podcast and is also an MMA journalist. And we ended up on this whole tangent about Harry Potter. And I told her how I had discovered that I must have been a Gryffindor. And then she insisted that I was Ravenclaw. So this is something we talk about on the Art Fight podcast.
And just for the record, this is something that's come up a lot on this podcast, and I know nothing about it. I have like everybody's speaking gibberish to me. This is me at your first crit or whatever critique and not knowing what the hell's going on. That's Harry Potter. That's Harry Potter to me for the last however long since Harry Potter happened. When did Harry Potter, whatever, when was Harry Potter born?
20 years ago?
I can't remember exactly, but I think I don't know exactly. But I know when I was growing up, like in elementary school, we would listen to the books on tape on like long drives and stuff. So I grew up with it, and I turned 30, so something like that.
Yeah.
It's wild. I don't know. I missed that whole thing, and then I guess I'm not really a sci-fi guy though. Generally, I like to deal in hard realities, Joe.
I've been like getting into sagas.
I'm a speculator. I like to speculate.
I've been doing Game of Thrones. I've just started. I've been doing. I redid all the Star Wars, not all the Star Wars stuff, but a chunk of the Star Wars stuff when The Mandalorian came out, and then I've been trying to like redo trying to listen to the Lord of the Rings book. So I like the sagas that just go on forever and ever.
Have you seen Rogue One?
Oh, I forgot to rewatch the new ones, but no, I redid like the 1 through 6 and watched the Mandalorian. But I need to redo those newer ones that just came out because I saw them when they first came out, but I have been familiarizing myself more with the universe.
Rogue One is. I've been finding more and more people who agree with this. That Rogue One is the greatest Star Wars film of all time.
I'll have to.
You've already seen it, right?
Me?
No, Brianna.
Oh, it's been a while since I've seen it. Yeah, and I need to rewatch it now that I've like brushed up on the canon, kind of the older things and where people are and who they are and their relationships and all of that. But I think The Mandalorian is the best movie of all, even though it's a TV show, because it's cute.
See, my Star Wars knowledge and experiences. Yeah, I went to all of them when they came out in the movies when I was a kid. The first 3 or whatever, or the last 3, the first 3. I don't, whatever, man. And then all those years went by, and then we lost Joe, and then and then for me it was like, oh, there you go. So for me it was I saw them in the theater and then as a kid, and then when they came back and had the one after a long time, whatever that one was, the Jar Jar Binks one or whatever.
Oh yeah, the first quote unquote first one, the fourth
that
one
happened. So I went to the theater and saw that, and I left.
So tough.
In the first like 5-10 minutes. I just left. I couldn't even. It was so bad. Like, actually, I think that's possibly one of the only, I think that might be the only movie I've ever just fully walked out on. But I was irritated because I don't know. I had a feeling it was not going to be great anyways, but
I don't love him. Like, Anakin's he's not a guy you love, and he's like the star of the show. So you just kind of have to watch him be a jerk the whole time. So I don't like that. But
my favorite part is, like, I think it's in I guess it's in the third one where he does this. He goes, after he becomes Darth Vader and he gets up off the table, but he's like a weirdly like pint-sized Darth Vader. Like, he's not big fucking Darth Vader. He's like got like an the mask is like too big, and then he's like, no, that is insane. That's like, it's insane how surrealistically terrible those movies got. But there's something about it though. Like, if it was on right now, I'd probably watch it.
Yeah. I mean, I rewatched them and just kind of like watched for the, I don't know, like the little things.
And that's where you get a lot of the backstory of how Boba Fett came to be, i.e. the Mandalorian story.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, they're like on this planet right now, and this is these people that, I don't know, after like watching the Mandalorian and getting a lot of like backstory about different places and different types of creatures and different civilizations and stuff, it's kind of makes it more interesting to watch those like 1, 2, and 3 movies, which I didn't like before, but now I'm like, oh, I see what.
Now it's research.
Yeah.
Well, I have a quick question. Like, you're Brianna, you're lighting up, right? Just talking about all this, right? And so and then simultaneously as you're talking, and I'm just noticing how much you're lighting up. Then I'm going back and I'm looking at your work, and I'm like, how do you resist being more sort of pictorial or representational or whatever? Because you seem to have a penchant for narrative in a way that maybe is not being perhaps as acknowledged, because just being the inherent frameworks of how you're working now don't necessarily bring work in that way. So you're a slave to narrative here. You love narrative, you love story, but then you're working in this other sort of kind of iterative sort of process, right? So how do you reconcile that?
I don't know exactly. There's a lot of baggage that comes with choosing what to paint, I guess. And I'm not like I don't consider myself a very good storyteller in a way. Like, when I travel, I make representational drawings and paintings of places I go, and I like to like draw make figurative drawings, and I really like to work that way. But
do you have one on a napkin right in front of you right now?
Wait, do what?
Do you have anything scratched on a napkin right in front of you right now?
You haven't been drawing my portrait this whole time, Brianna? Come on.
doing that weird, like, I'm looking at you, I'm not looking at my hand. Because that's how good I am.
I think if I do, I think I took it all to my studio, and I'm not there currently.
That's okay. I just thought on a lark I would ask, it's like, hey,
where are you currently? Are you in a dormitory building right now, or are you in a
apartment? It's okay. I'm still in the quarantine phase, so I had to get I got a COVID test every day for the past 4 days. Because it was like not coming back as readable. So I have to get like 2 consecutive negative tests before I can get back into the studio. And I've just been like,
wow,
my nose with Q-tips every day.
Well, let's just do the show again tomorrow, and then it can be part of. You can just start associating those things with doing our podcast.
Yeah. Most people feel like doing the podcast is like picking something up into their brain. It's just like, God damn it, really?
Well, so where do you give the most information about what's going on with you? Like, what's the hottest channel to follow for the kids today?
Yeah, I think my Instagram is probably the hottest channel.
All right. This is where the action is, right here on the screen. At Brianna. Okay.
Yeah, and then I keep my website up to date as well as I can when I finish new pieces. So my homepage of my website is all the work that I finished over the fall. And so once I start creating and finishing and documenting pieces during the spring, I'll move all that stuff into like my an archive folder. But yeah, everything pretty much stays as well documented as possible. But yeah, back to that narrative thing really quickly. I have trying to draw images from my dreams. So there is a bit of like that narrative that might start to sneak in some way.
Can you relate one of your weird dreams to us?
To take things full circle, I recently dreamed that I was trying to explain my work from a feminist perspective to Robert California.
Is that real? Seriously?
Yes.
Whoa.
And I can't remember specifically what I was telling him, but I feel like I was making some really compelling points, and I probably just like staying with his chin.
That's fantastic. So how did Robert California come up so many times in such different ways, spontaneously?
The ghost of Robert California. He exists in all of us now since he has disappeared from the television.
That's right.
Yes. Hey, so Joe, do you have anything going on right now that you would actively like to tell human beings about?
I'm kind of in the middle of a bunch of stuff right now. I've got an article in the Scene this week talking about Alex Lockwood's new show at Lusk, which opened last week. So there's a new show in Nashville, and I reviewed it in the Scene this week, and then I also did a review of the show that's at 21C Art Museum Hotel in Nashville, and that one is at White Hot Magazine and whitehotmagazine.com. And that one, actually, anybody, even if you're not in Nashville, if you go to the 21C Museum Hotel website and go to their Nashville location and look at their exhibitions, you can find this exhibition, which is like super virtual. Like, you can like zoom down into the architecture, and then it's like you're like a Google Street View in the hallways, and you can look at all the art. And then there's like little posts where you can click on little things, and it'll tell you a story about the artist and the work and stuff. So that's something you could go to White Hot Magazine, read my review, and then take a tour yourself of the Museum Hotel here in Nashville.
Cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
First year show has that feature. It's
rad
as well. Yeah, you can go in and like zoom around and click on the paintings and stuff like that.
Yeah, I really feel at the end of the day that the pandemic has shown us just how important it is to see art in person. I can tell you, as somebody who's written about art for fucking 15 years, that if I see a JPEG in a press release and it looks like it's good, it's like, just wait till you see it for real, because it's way better. And I've seen all sorts of stuff that seemed relatively, like, okay, whatever, some new prints from this person. And then I saw him in real life, and it was like, oh, wait a second. I had no idea what I was looking at. This is amazing, because you just can't account for scale, texture. There's so many things that go into art besides just like what you can get from a picture of art, So I'm very much looking forward to getting into being able to see art again. And also too, I mean, the other part of it is, like, I would say 75% of my social life was like hanging out at art shows, and or working on art shows in one way or another, but in a way that always involved being in a room full of people. And not having that right now it's one of those things where it's really showed you like, oh man, this is like valuable, and I'm lucky to have that thing, and I need it back.
Yeah, the vacation for all the social anxiety people is gonna be over at some point.
That's right.
So it's gonna be, I don't know. I feel like I have social anxiety, but just only it's very selective. It's not a condition.
Right.
It's sort of like this place, I'm anxious.
Yeah, I feel the
place,
same
I'm
way.
fine.
I feel like there's times when I feel like I just don't want to be around anyone. And then, of course, there's also times where it's like I want to be in the middle of everything now, until it's over, and then I want to do it again. So in this case, I feel like I've been starving for that for a while now, and I dropped off some new work over at Red Arrow the other day, and it was like it sucks going to a place like that. And there was a friend of mine there looking at the show that's up right now. The owner of the gallery was there, but you could even tell like we were all just sort of like in the minute, just kind of talking to each other in the space. But it also felt like you didn't feel like you could hang out. You didn't feel like you could give each other a hug. You didn't feel like you could just chill out and talk. I already ate lunch. I'm not going anywhere. I can just hang out here for an hour. It still felt like I need to drop off these paintings and leave. You know what I mean? So
there's a lot of that weirdness right now. Like in the first half of this whole time that we've been through so far, there was a lot more sort of meaning to connect with people and this and that. Now I'm just sort of like, I don't care if I talk to anybody.
Yeah, you can just sort of be like, take it easy, everybody, and bail, and it's totally.
Like, do you want to Zoom? Like, no.
Yeah. I hear you on that too. Like seeing paintings in person is so important, and
paintings especially.
Do what?
Paintings especially.
Yeah, I mean, paintings and like anything art related, just there's something that occurs between you and another object when like your relationship to that object, and that it's and documenting the color in my work is a night.
Oh God, I was just gonna ask. I mean, because my God.
So really quick, what you mean by that is you're talking about trying to get a faithful representation of the colors in your painting in the images that you're sharing, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Just for our people who know about head kicks and don't know about photography.
Right. Well, and also like even just getting a good image of a painting is wildly complicated to do very well. In the same way that architectural photography I've learned is I've had some gigs doing that stuff, and I'm like, this is really hard. This is really, really, really hard. I wish that I didn't have such an eye for lens distortion. You know what I mean? Because it was a better life when I just had no care and I didn't understand. No, but so, but one thing I think I was going to ask you, because like on your Instagram, Brianna, like you have, I was so glad to see a shot that was sort of like a side view texture sort of depth survey. And I don't know why. I don't know, like, I would like to see that even on the website or what. I don't know why more people, especially for people that are really leaning into paint, and it's not just soaking into something. The texture is so important here, and shadow and all of that. I loved that you did that. I would love to see more of that. And I don't know why other painters on their websites and, trying to deal with this digital divide situation, it's like, man, I would love to see more of that.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of learning, at least like those of us in graduate school right now who are having to do critiques online, or we're all kind of starting to learn how important it is to document those tiny little phenomena that occur like through the making process, those little bits that tell you what something is composed of, or that show you like, the accidents that can occur within a painting, which kind of humanize it a lot, which I think is something with with my work, how those like bulbs and the blobs and the little mistakes and stuff, it's not something that you would usually photograph, but when a viewer would stumble upon that in the work in person, they'd be like, oh, it's like, it's not perfect. And that's what brings it in. But yeah, it's kind of, it doesn't feel natural to kind of photograph all those little things, but I think we're all kind of learning how to how to really like bring into a greater value those little things that seem to just kind of like simmer around the edges of a piece of work.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's because, you know, we're in a time where it's like those images are all people are going to have, you know what I mean? So they have to, you know, it's like you have to sort of somehow come up with a way to show them, okay, these are the colors, this is the composition, but then also here's a few details that show you the sort of level of painterly texture that's going on with this thing or whatever. I think it's interesting because there was a show that I did at the end of last year at Red Arrow, and I did a painting for that show that was like just like fucking crazy texture, like just huge amounts of gesso all over the place before I even got to the painting. And when they took images of the painting head on, it was hard to understand any of that. But luckily they did, like the last photo that was in their little suite they had online was a shot from the side. And then you could really tell like, oh shit, there's like a ton of garbage on top of this thing.
There's relief work here.
Yeah, a ton of it. And it's like, and you could see it because of that reason. So I think it's like you say, I think that's starting to become a thing where people are realizing that in a way, like the job of the gallery photographer person, it used to be just sort of like showroom, you know what I mean? Like this is gonna, maybe somebody in Indiana will buy this painting if they like this picture, but now it's becoming more than that. It's like this is the only way that people can actually explore this work, and the camera has to do more, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like people are gonna have to have like backlog shows once this is all clear. Everybody's just gonna have it's gonna be just bonkers, you know. Everybody's got so much stuff.
Yeah,
new energy, new work, new things. But that's awesome. So I want to go ahead and wrap this up. But Brianna, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been really cool. Sorry about the technical.
Our first guest of 2021. Like we couldn't have started it better, Brianna. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, and so everybody, make sure to follow. I'm going to throw this up on the screen here again. And
Instagram.
It's really, really cool, and I really enjoy artists coming through on their quest, right? And then back to this kind of hero's journey, right? It's like people going off to Europe, going to Scandinavia to go do this program or go do this thing, and then you kind of check back with people, and it's awesome. So we'll be keeping up with you, and Joe, everybody will be keeping up with you as well.
I will have channel to channel this summer. Also, I forgot to.
Oh, cool! Red.
So,
can you say that again?
I'm going to have a show. I'm showing work with Brian Job this June at Channel to Channel. So
Brian Job, a former guest on Art Fight podcast. So and also now he is recently based in Knoxville again.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool. And for anybody who doesn't know, Channel to Channel Gallery is a gallery here in the hotbed of Wedgwood, Houston, Nashville's hottest art scene.
Sunday.
Art.
All right. Thanks everybody. Make sure to subscribe or do all the things. Make sure that if you're one of the, most of our audience is still listening through audio channels, but come over to the video side. It's not too terrible when it works.
Yeah. Everybody enjoy the fights this weekend. Enjoy the fights on Wednesday. And I think next Thursday we are there's an elusive Irish MMA journalist who may be joining the show again. I can't say more about it at this point. It's very hush hush.
Just in time for the big one. All right.
Yeah.
But thanks again. And Brianna, hang out. We'll see you on the other side of this little sign out that we're doing. But hey, thanks everybody for
everybody. Happy New Year. We'll see you next week.
Word up. All right. See you.